Hey everyone, welcome to the show Handing the Shame Back. This is dedicated to all the survivors of child sexual abuse across the globe. We know there's many of us, and podcasts like this are designed for you to find a safe place to land. You're believed, you're seen, and we stand beside you. We have a show every week dedicated to survivors and consisting of survivors, actually, because we know that listening to a survivor's story, you may hear one thing that helps you make sense of your own story. So that's what we're doing, and it's always a great pleasure to bring this to you. So I have a trigger warning, and that is so if you start to feel distressed or anxious, please do stop watching. Go to the show notes below, and you'll be dedicated and sent to some resource and support. Have I got a guest for you guys today? You're very welcome. So his name is Marvin. He was born in the UK. Well, he comes from the UK. He was actually born in prison. So how's that for a startup? He's a fighter. He's here to make more people aware of what goes on. He's a survivor. He's an author. He's many, many things. Welcome to the show, Marvin.
Thank you for having me, Gloria. It's been a pleasure. I've looked forward to this for quite a while now to speak to you. So it's great to
Um, well, we
come on.
we we do have an incredible friend in common, Matt Oakley, and without him, handing the shame back wouldn't be what it is. He's just given so many hours and weeks and days and months to us to help um, provide content in terms of how he puts all the graphics together. So shout out to Matt.
Shout out to Matt indeed.
Yeah. Hey, so Marvin, this is all about you.com. So, as
Yes,
much or as little as you're prepared to share, are you able,
of
please,
course.
to tell us about your story of child sexual abuse?
I will indeed, yeah. So I suffered sexual abuse when I was 11 years of age. There's big blocks of flats opposite the housing estate we moved on to, and I was an adopted child, so my birth parents was both drug addicts and they was in prison when I was born. So I was put in an orphanage and then I was signed away for adoption at 15 months old. And then I went to a Jamaican man and a Welsh woman. So he was very violent, my dad growing up, my adoptive dad. My Welsh mum was quite kind, but he was very violent. He used to use a bamboo belt and stuff to whip me around the house. So I never got close to my adoptive dad at all. So when he used to tell me to stay out of these block of flats overlooking the house, I didn't really listen to him type thing. And I was only 11. I met an older boy who was about 16, probably more. Thinking about it now, he's probably a bit older. And he was called Andy, and he lived in the flats next to this other block, what I ended up going to. And I had, I think it was an Amstrad Games console that used to put tapes in them years ago. And I had one of them, and he said to me, I went to his house one day, ended up at his mum's house. He had a mum's flat in his block of flats. And he said to me, he's got games for the machine. So I went with him. And then when I get to his bedroom, he says to me, I haven't got the games for him. My mate's got them over there in the other block of flats. So I just thought nothing of it of him. I just followed him along innocently away. We get to these block of flats. We go to the seventh floor. We go to number 37. He knocks on the door. He opens the door, and a man in his late 50s answers the door. And I'm just speaking, and he's saying a few words to him. And suddenly, he just pulled me into the room. His bedroom was right behind the front door. And I kind of just stepped in and I don't know how it happened. And he pulled me into this bedroom and he pushed the door, he closed the door, and he pulled this big wooden toolbox behind the door, and he literally started licking my face and stuff, and peeled my clothes off, raped me anyway. It was horrendous, really. It was like a nightmare. It
Yes.
was a true nightmare because I'd never had anything like that happen to me before. An adult had never touched me like that before, and I didn't know how to explain it. I couldn't describe what happened to me if you would have asked me at 11.
Don't need
I
to.
didn't have the word.
No.
I didn't have the words for it.
Yes.
So I couldn't go home and explain it. The only thing what was in my mind is I shouldn't have gone to the flats. I shouldn't have gone to the flats. So I went home that evening. I went home and I just assumed like everyone knew. I walked in my mum and dad's house, my adoptive mum and dad's house, and they had an adoptive sister who was 5 years older than me. And I just automatically thought he was going to say, "You've just been abused," but nobody knew. And it was funny, I went to school the next day, and in school I did the same thing. I expected everyone to just start going, you was raped yesterday or whatever. Something happened to you yesterday, but no one said anything. And I went home from school, and his van was parked outside my mum and dad's house. And he was stood in the hallway with them, saying to when I walked in, he's like, "Oh, here he is." I'm like, "Oh my god!" And he's gone. "Oh, here he is helping my mum go to the shop for yesterday. He's a very kind lad, isn't he?" And all that. And I'm stood there thinking, "What do I say here?" I mean, mum's speaking to him. I mean, adoptive dad, like they know him kind of, but not like know him, just like he's a local person off the. So I just didn't know what to do, and I was locked in that then for a very long time, and I suffered unimaginable, horrendous nightmares. Um, this Digi trials kind of triggered me a lot because you talk about baby oil. Now, in my book, I speak about being raped with baby oil and margarine, and I used to feel that that was a barrier against being touched. So he wasn't really touching my skin; he was just touching the margarine and the.
Of
You
course.
understand?
Yes, of course. And look, I just want to stop you there and thank you so much, Marvin. We don't need details. It's hard enough just having to bring it to
Yeah, of
mind. But I just want to
course.
thank you for sharing. And hello, beautiful survivors. You'll notice as we keep talking and Marvin shares more about the impact really on him that already there's so much value in what he's sharing because this man that was his abuser was so manipulative. When we're being groomed, which Marvin was, which a lot of you were, what happens is they're very clever, these adults who are predators, because it's not always violence they need to use. They can actually manipulate by grooming our parents. And this is what Marvin experienced. So the
Yeah,
parents were probably thinking, what a great guy.
he
Marvin, you're
was.
safe with him. Go and
Yeah,
be with him and their fictitious mother that you're supposedly helping. So, survivors watching, I just want you to be aware if you were equally manipulated and groomed, as in like Marvin has just described, please do know you're not alone. It's a tactic they use, and as children, no way could you have ever managed to escape that.
you couldn't at all. And what I want to say is, it's now times have changed. Thankfully, times have changed. It's not. I tell my son that his privates are private for him only. Okay,
Yeah,
so I want to start a foundation called Don't Turn a Blind Eye, and you will hear about it soon. And that's for survivors of abuse, sexual abuse, to report it more to the police, to the authorities, to the parents, or somebody in an adult who they can trust with that knowledge. So I never had an adult who I could trust. But nowadays, thankfully, these adults who kids can trust.
yeah.
Yeah, so
And I think that's a great point that you raise. So again, you're just the little gift that keeps giving, aren't you? Again, what you're saying is that we have a situation where you're able to educate your child. So you see, you've broken the cycle. Not only have you
well,
broken the
sure.
cycle, you've taken it a step further where your child and this generation of children can be kept safe. So thank you for
Yeah, they
doing
can.
that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's very true. Um, so don't turn a blind eye is this, that there's no such thing as grassing culture. I know there's this grassing culture where everyone believe in. There's no such thing as grassing a sex offender. They're not. I was a criminal for many years because I got addicted to drugs through my abuse and used drugs as a comfort tool and as a tool to a blanket. Use
Yep.
drugs as a blanket.
Yep.
And I do think that kids have got the strength in them now to not let ever what happened to me happen to them because they've got the words now. The words are there finally that kids can explain abuse now. But like you say, predators are very manipulative and they'll tell you that it's good to keep secrets and being secretive is the best way, or don't tell tales. I was told, don't tell tales. I was always told, don't tell tales. So I didn't know what that meant. And I just thought, don't tell on adults if they do anything. You know, being raised on don't tell tales. And it was just like a joke. But what it really was is my adoptive dad, he was very violent. So we used to use a belt and stuff and beat me and stuff for we in the bed because I was a distressed little child because I was born in distress.
Yes.
So I used to literally bang my head off a pillow repeatedly to try and get to sleep. Um, because I was told also that I was picked. So being picked as a child is very, very hard to understand. Like you pick things off the floor, you know, you pick stuff up. So it's
Yeah.
not, yeah, it's not love,
Doesn't
is it?
feel like a compliment, does it?
No,
No.
no, it doesn't.
But you know, you're here to shine a light on this, Marvin. So I want you to take a bow because you know what you've been through, you've managed to turn around and create something meaningful as in spreading
Yeah,
awareness and spreading the message. I do want
yeah,
to just challenge on one small point though, and it's just my opinion. I'm so thrilled that safe adults and parents like yourself are educating their children. But I will
yeah.
say this, I don't think children easily to this day talk about child sexual abuse. But what children do is they show us, and they show us through their behavior. So
They do
if you
indeed.
think about it, you're probably very highly attuned, as you survivors watching will be, to your child and children because there's no way you ever want that to happen to your son. So you're going to keep a very protective eye out and be aware of what's
Indeed.
going on. You spot the difference?
Indeed.
Now
Yeah,
he doesn't have to say a word because you're so attuned with him. His
yeah.
behavior will show you when something's off. I
That's
bet.
very true. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's very true. So
Yeah.
my parents wasn't really watching me when I was growing up, but that was my fault really because I used to run away a lot from home. Like I used to go searching for my birth mum, so I'd literally just run for miles until the police picked me up in the evening and bring me back home.
Yeah, so I'm
So
going to correct you again. None of this was your fault. If
no,
you weren't if you weren't feeling loved or safe, then of course you're going to find an escape. And if that's you
indeed.
running, then
Yeah,
that's you running. So I think,
yeah,
you know, please give yourself some grace and love, self-love,
yeah,
because
yeah,
you did the best you could to cope with where you were.
yeah. Of course. Yeah, I agree with you. So yeah, thank you for that. But I do want to stress that I can't stress it enough that survivors now of abuse shouldn't keep it a secret. Or if you have been abused and you haven't reported it, I'd urge you and beg you to do that. Just for, just think if they done it to you, there might be another victim. I used to see the person who abused me when I got to like old enough to keep him away from me. I found the words. Trust me, it went on for too long. But when
Yeah.
I found the strength, I used to see other kids in his van driving past, and I'd think, God knows what them parents would know if they seen their children in that car. So the caretaker, what was funny is the caretaker of this block of flats lived right up opposite my abuser. And I'd go up and down in the lift in my school uniform with the abuser and the caretaker, and he just let onto him and just look at me like I wasn't even there. And it dismays me how someone would not say anything. So also people who are watching this who think that they've seen abuse and they have got a way to tell somebody else, just tell somebody else and see what happens. You know, you
Yeah.
know.
It's really quite powerful, and I guess I want to just ask you a couple of things. One, how old were you when it finally stopped?
14, getting on for
14.
14, getting
Well,
on for 14.
yeah. And there, and I'm so sorry it went on. And then the other thing is, were you ever able to share with your mum or any adult what had happened?
I didn't tell anyone till I was in my mid 40s.
Yeah,
I told a few, I'd hinted it to my partner, but I'd never told her. I said I was abused when I was younger, but
yeah,
I never ever got into it. See, this is the thing. When you're a victim of abuse, you feel like you've got to keep it in. But why should you have to let that secret burn you up inside?
yeah.
I Once you release it, trust me, that poison dissipates. Soon as you release that and tell somebody else, you will feel it go. That secretive energy, this case, this hermetic seal you've built inside yourself, what you don't want anyone to know about. Once you let somebody in, you'll find that it vanishes. That, that energy, that horrible feeling inside of yourself. Once you tell somebody and they take it on board with you, it's like a problem halved is a problem solved and all
Well,
that,
and the weight of it, when you think of it,
Yeah,
because
the weight.
is the weight, it's,
Yeah.
I think the reality too, and be interested to know what you think, Marvin, because this all happens in silence and secrecy and shame. We know as children who experience this child sexual abuse, we know we can't tell anybody. We just know we can't. It's not safe for us to use our words. And I think it's so important for adults to understand that actually, for a child to speak is like abseiling off a cliff without any safety gear. It's that big. When you think about the first time, so who were the first people you told in your mid 40s? Was it your partner or?
I was being interviewed off a prison officer and
Wow.
who used to lock me up years ago, and he's a very, very successful book writer now. And he wrote a book called Strange Ways Unlocked, and I got a chapter in that. And I just come out with it to him one day and just went into it. I just thought, I'm not going to hold it in any longer. It's not fair, on myself. And once I let it out, it just went there.
Yeah.
That weight just lifts off you. Even though he'd long been dead, my attacker, he'd been long dead, but it still gave me that release that I'm helping somebody else by telling my story.
Yeah.
You know?
No. That's huge. And were you eventually able to tell your mum or your dad or
No, never. My mum,
no?
my adoptive mum was dead many, many years ago,
Okay.
and I did tell my adoptive dad, um, and he kind of called me a liar, to tell you the truth.
Yes. And I'm sorry to hear that. Unfortunately, I'm not surprised to hear that. This is often the case because people don't want to accept it happens or that it's happened.
Accept it because I literally said to him, "Do you remember that fella who used to come round and in the delivery van and pick me up as a kid?" And I said his name, and he's like, "Look," and I said, "I was being sexually abused then, Dad," and he just was like, "No, no, no way," and I was like, "Really?" And that was it. think that's all he ever said to me about it, and that was that.
And this is why people don't tell. This is why
Exactly, yeah.
people don't share because we call that the second wound. And if you think about it, Marvin, the first wound is the first time this happens. But the second wound is when you finally find the courage to share this with anyone and they
Yeah.
basically don't may not call you a lie, but they don't believe you.
No, I
That's
know.
that's a very
Yeah.
big wound as
I know
well.
somebody who's been in the same situation, and it was her mum's boyfriend who was abusing her. And when she told her mum threw her out the house, didn't believe her, said,
Yeah.
"No, I don't believe you," and threw her out.
Yep.
Kept the boyfriend and chucked her
Yep.
out.
Yep. Unfortunately. So,
Yeah.
you managed to get through all of that. Well done. And what happened as you got older, you began offending. Obviously, there would have been such rage in you, such
I had a,
fury. Yeah,
yeah, I had a, it was horrendous for me. Straight away, I was immediately disruptive in school.
yeah,
Um, couldn't settle down in the classroom, didn't have no respect for adults, didn't want to learn anything. I had bigger fish to fry. Um, and I started using lighter gas, butane gas, abusing that, and literally just putting it in my mouth and just pushing the little plastic thing and just, very, very dangerous, very dangerous. Could have killed myself at any moment. In fact, people used to say to me, you could die, you get a bubble in your brain of taking that. And I didn't care because I was going through abuse. I didn't care. I wasn't happy on this earth for that, And because I didn't respect adults, my first ever job I got, my adoptive sister got me a job in a clothing factory. And straight away I started stealing the products from the factory. I was going into the store, stealing the product, throwing it over the wall at the end of work, going and taking it and selling it on the street to people on the street for pennies, really, not even for good money, just because I just didn't respect adults. After 2 weeks, I get caught and get arrested, theft from a workplace. Police come. Um, and then it moved on to selling drugs, cannabis, and then taking a lot of drugs to try and soothe it, But you don't get rid of it.
no,
It'll suppress it for a few hours, but you're back to thinking about what happened and what you could have done different. And that's the hardest thing is when there's a very important saying, and it's in my book, and it's forgive yourself because you didn't know back then what you know now. Yeah. And
that's lovely.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I really, 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 really mean that. I really mean that to every survivor. Forgive yourself because you didn't know back then what you know now.
Well, and the thing too, if you think back, and it's a really good point you raised, so thank you, you're doing great. Um, if
Thank
you
you.
if you think back, as a child of 11, you wouldn't really have even understood what was going on. I mean, how can we make
I didn't.
sense of what an adult's choosing to do when our brain isn't even fully developed? We not really understanding, we just know it's wrong. So, partly why I've set up my foundation called Handing the Shame Back is because the shame never belonged to us. We were children.
It's very true. You haven't got the words to describe it then. You really haven't. And you can't, it takes a long time and a very strong person. It doesn't actually, anybody can be strong. We're all strong people, but you've got to forgive yourself
Yeah,
because it's not you. You're not the one hurted. You never hurt yourself. You never put yourself there.
no,
If things was different, you wouldn't have let it happen to you. So you've really got to find that forgiveness.
I think so. But I also think as children, we are conditioned, and survivors, this will speak to you as well, what Marvin's saying. Look, as survivors, we were children there and we couldn't really understand or process much of this. We just knew it was wrong, it felt wrong, it was wrong, and we knew we had to keep the secret. But the point is, what happens is because we're children and we're conditioned, do what you're told, do what the adult says, behave yourself or else, don't let me down, they're in charge. We were basically voiceless and we didn't have any power. And so I think what happens is then we naturally, as time goes by, start to blame ourselves because it must be my fault. I must be a really bad person because this keeps happening. So,
Yeah,
you know, that self blame is alongside guilt, and it's all about being unable to love ourselves or give ourselves the grace or the compassion.
yeah,
And it's not till we look at photos of us at that age that we realize, oh my gosh, what power did we have? Oh,
indeed.
none, none.
None, none. I mean, like when you're that age, you get a meal put in front of you, you've got to eat it. You're not given a choice of like, you don't get a menu at that age.
No,
You get a meal in front of you, and if you don't like red beans, you've still got to eat them. It's just the fact, isn't it? Like,
yeah,
you've got to eat your tea
yeah,
before you can go out to play. So,
that's right.
there's very strict ground rules what are set for you from very young. And if someone just comes in and just like a drop of poison, how can you like tell anyone and let your parents down? Like you said, you're letting them down by telling them someone's done that to you, or like how should they have let that happen, and how should
Yeah,
they have got that close? And you know, um, I just really thought that I wouldn't have been believed back then. It was just, it seemed so. I had my dad who used to beat me, so that was that. He wasn't my real dad. And then I've got this other man who's abusing me, and he's nothing to do with me. Like, what's going on? What's going on in this world? Is
just
this world full of
disgusting.
pain?
Yeah.
I used to ask myself, is this world full of pain?
Well,
But,
and that's the experience you had. So, what age were you when you were out of prison? What age were you?
I went in and out of prison as a petty offender.
Yeah.
I used to commit minor thefts for drugs. So I'd get in open cars or break the window if I had to. And then it was just petty nuisance crimes, shoplifting and stuff like that. I used to walk in and pick up a stony PlayStation, what they'd have on the shelves, and think, I'm going to walk out. If I get pulled and get caught, it doesn't matter. I'm going to be all right in jail anyway. I know everyone in jail. All my mates are in jail, so it wasn't like I had any fear of prison. But I missed using drugs. So that's the reason what prison was good for me for, because it kept me alive. So yeah, it took me many, many years to realize though that I was using drugs as a crutch because I had no other way of managing what I
No,
was going through,
no.
you know.
Of course.
And mm,
I mean, we've got to find a way to manage this, and that became one of the ways. And again, that's not on you or anyone else who chose that. We were just trying to cope with the trauma that we could never speak of, you know.
that's right. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
But
was very. Go on, sorry.
sorry, no, no. It's kind of like, of course, we're gonna be filling prisons and rehabs and be the group that,
Selling drugs and pretend gangsters and want to be the hard man. You're masking something. You're hiding something.
well,
You've suffered
yes,
in your life
yeah,
to do that. You've
100%.
suffered. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
so,
mean, you'll see that you see the average person on the corner who's selling drugs to the mum's friends and the mum's ex-friends and thinking, but they wouldn't do that if they knew the impact what they was doing, and if they knew how much hurt they was causing. I
yeah,
don't think they'd do it. If they had a choice, they wouldn't,
no,
would they? So
no,
clearly, there is people who do things by choice who have, want to hurt people, and then people shouldn't be given a chance. Really, I think. I hope that this grassing culture changes, and I personally would like it known that if you are touched or abused or your body is touched in any way, shape, or form of anybody, that is not right. And you should tell somebody else immediately. And if you are a victim and you're scared to talk, just try telling, just try. That's all I beg of you, is just try and find that courage and that strength to tell somebody else. Because if you tell somebody and everything works out, I can't say that though, really. That's not right, is it? Because if it doesn't work out, what's the opposite? Like you said, if you tell someone and
Yeah. But I do want to add something because I think this is important. How will you know when it's your time to tell? Because it will come out of you. You won't have a choice. It's going to be
oh,
there. And
yeah,
the other thing is, if you're like me and you're a person that was determined to never speak, and then now I have started speaking, I can't seem to stop. Uh,
yeah, yeah,
then that's what that is. But you don't know how what a relief, as Marvin said at the beginning, what a relief to have it out. And even if that means you write it out on paper, that's one
yeah.
way to express it. Even if it
That's it.
means you whisper it to your best mate, that's
Yeah.
something.
Leave a voice note to somebody
Yeah, even
just
that.
to get it to someone,
But it's got to be someone you trust. So I
of
think
course.
it's really important because it's big and you probably held on to it for years. So,
Yeah.
Marvin, if we look at now, I believe there's a book with your name on it.
He is indeed, yeah. I wrote a book,
Can
Born
you
in
show
Prison.
us?
Of
Yeah.
course, yeah. Here's my book there. It's my book, and that's me on it. Born in Prison: How I Survived Shooting, Stabbings, Prison, Crack Addiction, Manchester Gangs, and Dog Attacks. It's quite a title, but Born in Prison is the title. If you just Google Born in Prison, you'll see the book. The reviews are fantastic. It's got 4.7 out of 5 on Amazon,
Wow.
which is quite good, with like
Congratulations.
88 reviews on it, written reviews, which is
Wow.
very impressive.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm so proud of it. Really, it's my little baby. Yeah, so it talks about my abuse at the beginning. Then I'll tell you a bit about the crime and stuff like that, and the people I met along the way. But it's very interesting, and it doesn't stay still. It's
Yeah.
not a starter. It's very good. You would really enjoy it. When you read it, you're gonna love it.
I will. Hey,
Yeah.
so Marvin, tell us, you can't have a title of a book called Board in Prison without telling our audience. What do you mean by that? Come on.
Yeah, born in prison. Yeah, so my parents was two drug addicts, and they was from London. My mum came to the northwest of England because London's in the south of England. My mum came up here to the northwest of England because she escaped, or tried to escape, from a prison in London. I believe it was Holloway. She was a right little rascal when she was younger, it seems, my mum. So at 19 years of age, she finds herself pregnant with me, in a mother and baby unit in style prison. So I'm born, and her family was very strict Greek Cypriot, and she fell for a man, obviously, with darker skin, who wasn't Greek Cypriot. So straight away there was going to be problems, and she told her probation officer that if she took me back to London, she and the baby would be killed. So that's why she eventually signed the paperwork.
Wow.
So I went to a prison I went to an orphanage near the prison. And then from there, I was adopted to a Jamaican man and a Welsh woman. But the orphanage where I was in, or the home or whatever I was in, it's supposed to have been a very strict place, because my adoptive dad told me he went up there one day and he couldn't see the kids after 4 o'clock because they said to him, and I quote, the kids are locked away after 4 o'clock and you can't see them till the next day. So they couldn't see me after 4 o'clock. So that is what it is. And I had a really tough upbringing with my Jamaican adoptive dad. he treated me quite badly. So, well, like I say, when I was going through this abuse, I didn't respect him enough to tell him, to let him hold on to it. I didn't think he'd believe me. So I kept it secret. But that was the biggest mistake of my life, keeping it secret. And it is my biggest regret of my life. That's why I'd urge anybody to report it. Any victim there who's suffered any form of abuse, whether it's violent, physical, sexual, it's in your right to report it. That's what laws of the lands are made for. The laws of the lands are made to report something. If you lost your phone tomorrow, obviously you'd report it stolen or lost. You know, if you lost your computer, obviously you'd go and see if you could find it. You'd report it lost. If someone touches you, why don't you report that as abuse? If someone physically touches you, harms you in any way, that's just as bad as losing something. The laws will, the laws of whatever land you were in will take it very, very seriously. And you will see that there'll be consequences for that person's actions, you know, and I can't stress it enough.
Yeah.
Grassing culture. There's no such thing as grassing a sex offender. It doesn't exist, because when I was in prison, if a sex offender came on my wing, on our wing, and we found, they would never tell you they're a sex offender, by the way. They'd say they're in for the driving offence or something. And one of the prison officers would say, he's in for abusing children or whatever. We'd go in and beat him up and leave him like hospitalised. I'm being frank with you and honest and straight. They'd be left for dead. That's why they build prisons now for sex offenders. So there's no thing what you've got to do, and no laws what you've got to keep for the street, like grassing and all that. It's just nonsense. Go and tell somebody now and
Well,
see what happens.
yes, and I hear you, because I think, I look at it this way. What does the silence as in not grassing achieve? It's just a free pass for the predators and pedophiles to keep abusing.
Exactly.
It's
It's
that
just free
simple.
pass.
Its
Yeah,
only group that it serves are the pedophiles.
that's it. That's right. There's no such thing as grassing.
No,
You know,
not with children being abused.
not with children, not being touched, not being
No,
harmed.
no.
That's the lines crossed right there.
Yeah, yeah,
That's where you tell somebody straight away.
yeah,
No, I know I'm this big 6'2" strong man, and I was scared to tell people. I
yeah,
was scared. But
yeah,
I urge you to tell and watch what happens. You will be believed. Trust me, you
yeah,
will be believed.
yeah,
That's the first thing. You will be believed.
yeah,
You've got to tell people that
yeah,
they will be believed.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, can I ask you, are you, as we're talking now, we're coming, we've got about 3, 4 minutes left. Is there
Yeah.
any advice you would like to give our beautiful survivors watching, that may help them? I know you've said tell someone. I know you've said they'll be believed. Is there anything else that you, now that you look back on your own experience, that you wish you had known as a survivor who perhaps had just worked through, oh my gosh, I have been abused and I have to deal with it? Any advice you would give our survivor family watching?
I'd say forgive yourself. That's the most important thing. That is the one what you've got to do.
Yeah,
Don't let it burn you up. Don't let it poison you.
yeah,
Get the poison out of you. Get it out of you, whichever way that is. If you don't want to tell, if I'm telling you, if you don't want to tell, that's on you. You don't tell. But don't carry it around with you anymore.
yeah,
Drop it off like an old bit of rubbish in the bin. You've got to mentally rip it out of your brain, screw it up, and throw it away forever. Don't look back. Don't let it poison you anymore, because it wasn't your fault. You are a victim. Okay? That's it. You was a victim. There's a victims of everything out there, but you was a victim, and it wasn't your fault. Now you've got to forgive yourself.
Yeah.
Stop carrying it around like baggage. Screw it up, rip it up, tear it up, throw it away. Stop carrying it around like baggage. It's not your fault.
Yeah.
That's it.
It's amazing. And what a fantastic way to end this, Marvin. And
Yeah,
please stay right there. So, wow, audience, it's not your fault. It never was. Those are powerful words from Marvin, and I really hope you absorb that because for too many of us, there's a feeling that somehow it was our fault. Somehow we allowed it. We're also conditioned and groomed to believe that, of course, by the abuser. But the reality, it was never your fault. And I think, Marvin shared a lot with us this morning or this evening in the UK, but this morning here in New Zealand. And, one of the things he said, which I've never heard it put this way, but which has really struck with me, is he used drugs as a blanket. And wow, that hit. Because, of course, there was no comfort. If you couldn't talk about it, if it was unable to be shared at that time, you had to have some type of comfort or nurturing. And all too often, it's drugs that become the addiction of choice. Now, for some, it can be food, for some, it can be alcohol, for some, it can be work, for some, it
yeah.
can be sex, but there's always addiction.
Oh, don't get it twisted. It used to be food.
Yeah,
When I couldn't get
yeah,
drugs, it was food. I used to go
exactly.
around the prison wing and get bread off, go to door by door saying, have you got any bread? Have you got any
Yeah,
spare bread? And
yeah,
I'd just collect a big pile of bread.
yeah,
And one day, a prison officer, I'd never heard the phrase before, and he said, you're a comfort in you. You're missing something big in your life, he said to me.
yes,
And I thought, how did he read my whole
yes,
life
yeah.
in one sentence?
Yeah, a
That's
hundred
it right
percent,
there.
100%. So we're going to close out now, but audience, um, please give yourself some grace, as Marvin says. Please forgive yourself. We're going to say goodbye to Marvin, but I just want you to know, as always, lovely ones, I see you, I stand beside you, and I believe you.